All right. For today, we're going to review everything there is about the SAT, the digital SAT. And for the easy questions, right? I'm still leaving out some of the most difficult questions out there on the SAT, which I'm going to introduce for you guys today also. That is the questions about contextual and inferences and making cross-text connections and everything like that. Those are the very last things we're going to learn. And I'm teaching you guys for safe measure. You guys don't really have to fully learn them because they are indeed very difficult and they take account for very little in your scores if you're aiming for 1400 plus. Okay, if you're aiming for 1500 plus, which some of you I'm targeting, I would suggest to practice everything. But as of now, I find that the safest route to take is to aim for the 1400 mark benchmark mileage, the milestone. Okay. So focus on everything we're going to review today. And then we will learn the difficult part next in the latter section of this session. Firstly, I'm going to ask for the punctuation. Punctuation. Can you name me some punctuation when it comes to your mind, Can you name me some punctuations?
Apostrophes, commas, semicolons, colons, dot, and
Periods, yes, dot.
and dashes and breaks.
Okay, very good. So these are the main punctuations. Firstly, semicolon and period or dot, and also dashes, commas. And for the brackets you're talking about, brackets, these are brackets, and they are pretty much similar to this dashes. So we are not going to learn about them because it's very simple. There's only one use, which is to supplement the information, to be a supplement of information. And also the apostrophe, it's very simple. There are two uses. Firstly is to indicate the ownership, and secondly is to indicate to concatenate to be verbs. All right, that's it. That's precisely it. And next up is transition. Transition, Lina, can you tell me the fundamental relationships of transitions? The relationships of transitions. Hello, are you talking? Lina, can you hear me? I can't really hear anything you say.
Sorry, I forget it.
But the relationships of the transitions, I'm just going to give you some hints: plus, minus, and others. What is the plus? Supporting or yes, supporting. And what is the minus? Contrasting, exactly. These are the only thing that you're going to have to remember. Do not forget it because it's very simple. Plus and minus, supporting, contrasting, contrasting. And the others. I find the most common from the others is the causation. Okay. The others, for example, as a result, and to these end, and etc. For the other section, the categorization, some people would categorize it as causation, there are three fundamental relationships: supporting, contrasting, and causation. But in my case, I will classify it as other because it is, well, it's more precise this way because it's not just talking about the causation, it's talking about some of these also, to these ends and also ultimately. And these are the transitions which you can't really use for the, can't really put them into any categories like supporting or contrasting, right? So I'm going to give you some examples and you're going to specify it whether it is supporting or contrasting. Are you ready, Elena?
Yes.
Okay, first off is however. Contrasting, exactly, despite, in spite of.
Contrasting.
Additionally. Indeed. Especially.
Supporting.
How about granted?
Contrasting.
Exactly, that is the tricky one. Granted, it seems like supporting, but actually has a very negative connotation, a slightly negative connotation. Next up will be, let me just switching over. Hang on a sec. Next, oh wait. Just switching on my phone is quite difficult. All right, next up will be some rules. Okay, firstly, I'm going to focus mostly on the fundamental rules which we have learned. I'm going to walk to parallelism firstly. What do you know about parallelism, Hung? What do you know about parallelism?
Can you hear me?
All right, now again.
Can I get a hint? I forgot.
Parallelism, it happens when there was n or a list. You need to practice them a bit because you have to remember these. And or lists, you have parallelism. What do you think? What is parallelism?
Is to like discuss some. No, wait. Discuss some supporting ideas.
No, parallelism, if this is an example. You see these two sides of the word and, they are parallel to each other. These are called parallelism, right? So what are parallelism?
Things that happen simultaneously.
It's not, that is talking about tenses, right? But this one I'm talking about structures. Parallelism is when you put, is structure that happens when you put and or a list, right? And or a list that happens with parallelism. For example, you can list out walking, sitting, and running. But can you list like walked, sitting, and runs? Can you do this?
No.
No, you can't, right? So remember, parallelism is when you have to adhere to one specific type of structure, even with modifiers. For example, and also WH relative clauses. For example, she who is her mother and who also stole the watch, comma, something else. All right, this is the main clause. And this one, you can see that it is a clear parallelism structure. You can see these two structures, they are parallel to each other. The same thing applies for modifiers. For example, she running late and behaving like a child said sorry. That's also a parallelism. Okay, parallelism is not just for words, it's for phrases also, and it ensures the coherence and the structural of the a sentence. So remember that. Next one will be shorter is better. Thumb, it's your turn. What do you know about shorter is better?
So in the questions that require you to combine two sentence, the shorter answers must always be better than the long one. And if you encounter two short answers, you should consider them by read them back carefully and choose the right answer.
Okay, very good. So is it true that it's always the case? Is it true that the shortest is always the best?
Mostly, not always.
Mostly, not always, but there's one thing, you can't really choose the shortest, but you choose the two shortest, okay? So that's one word you got it wrong. You choose the two shortest, and the shorter is not always better. And you, after choosing the two shortest, in some cases, because when the length of the answer of the options, they are apparently longer and or variant, they are variant to each other, they're very different, you can use that one. But if the answers are purposefully they put with the same length, it means that they have already known this strategy, and you're going to have to consider whether or not they are repetitive, right? The shorter is better is then the essence of shorter is better rule is because some longer options they repeat the aforementioned information, so the repetitive is almost forbidden on the SAT. So always try to look for a repetition for the questions that are talking about shorter is better. All right, next up, splitting sentence. It's all right. What kind of structures are you going to eliminate out of a sentence if, say, I give you this one. Wait a minute. One sec. Let me just open it up. Lina, firstly, can you tell me the kind of the structures or the structures that you can eliminate when splitting sentence? What should you eliminate when splitting sentence?
think that we can eliminate the supporting clause of the sentence.
Supporting clauses, exactly. Specifically, what supporting clauses?
Modifier.
Exactly. What else?
Relative clause.
Exactly. And what else? Sorry. Just trying to paste it and it's not working. Right, this one. Relative clause, what else? Anything that's between brackets or anything that's between two commas or anything that's between two dashes, you can always eliminate them out. And also there's one more thing, prepositional phrases. Do you still remember what prepositional phrases are?
Yes.
What are they?
They start by a preposition and I can express it, but
So can you just specify what is a preposition in this sentence? A preposition phrase in this sentence?
from behind the face of the hill,
Exactly. Is that it?
there will be from behind the face of the hill after a long night.
After a long night of leaving its place for her cousin, the moon. That is also a prepositional phrase. And is that it?
On the back of the mountain,
Very good. On the back of the mountain, from behind the crest of the hill, after a long night of leaving its place for her cousin, and also the moon is separated by two commas, so we're going to cross them out also. And how about the remaining? Can you find something else that you can eliminate?
anything stressed up even not supposed to in the brain.
What are they? What is it? Yes, very good. Modifier. So you also eliminate this part, and also casting its light, and also peaking. Right? These are all eliminated, leaving just the winding sun. That's why the sentence is incorrect. We have just learned this in the previous session. All right, next up, we will talk about modifiers. Modifiers, I don't think we should talk rephrase it because you just mentioned it. Modifiers and prepositional phrases and non-essential parts also. So we're going to ask Hung to specify what a modifier is in this sentence. I find that our class is a bit weak on maths. So next week, I'm going to put some main focus on maths and I'm going to give out extra homework for maths. And of course, I'm going to host some extra sessions for for those who are going to take the August SAT. And I would expect you guys to do extra work on that one because, well, you guys are going to take the exam soon. All right, it's Hung turn to specify what the modifier is in this case.
Leaving a loud clang that startled everyone.
All right, this one, firstly.
Trumped by the sound of a loud clang,
All right, very good.
leaving him unable to throw a tantrum on this poor guy.
Exactly, it's very simple. You just specify, yeah, the modifier. It's very good. There's no easy way of saying this. Besides that, it's very easy to know what a modifier is when you know where to look for it. Firstly, the verb ing, and secondly, also the adjective. For example, like the word jumped. Jumped is sometimes you would see it's a past verb, but verbs, they can also be turned into adjectives. Right, next up, Hung also, can you tell me some rules about names and titles? Do you still remember what names and titles are? You know what names and titles? For example, Marie Curie. Curie, is this how she spelled it? I'm not really sure. 2R, I suppose. A physicist. Won 2 Nobel Prizes. In this case, can you put 2 commas in this place? Yes, you can. Why is it?
Because physicist is a title.
It's non-essential. So if you cross out this one, do you still know who Marie Curie is?
Yes.
What if the opposite? What if you put a physicist over here and put 2 commas after Marie Curie?
You cannot do that
Why?
because you wouldn't know. Because you wouldn't know who won the 2 Nobel Prizes specifically.
Exactly. So if I'm talking about something, I'm specifying the one and only that I know who that is. For example, the King of England, the Queen of England, or the CEO of a company. Not talking about a CEO of a company when I'm using the word the. That means there's only one. And it's very easy to specify who or where that object is. Okay. And finally, can you tell me a bit about fanboys? What are they?
They are coordinating conjunctions, and
Right.
it is stand for and nor, but, or, yet, and so.
Why should you use this? When do you use this?
We use we after a comma to connect an independent clause and an a dependent clause.
Let's see. You use fanboys to prevent which? To prevent what?
Group independent clause with dependent clause.
So you use fanboys to prevent run-ons. Okay, run-on happens when you combine 2 independent clauses with a comma. So when you put fanboys in the middle, you can then combine the 2 independent clauses, not the independent and dependent. Okay, so remember that. Some of these, so after reviewing these sections, is very fundamental sections. I can find that you guys haven't really learned something too clearly, but you did quite a bit decently on your homework, but you haven't learned deeply enough to understand it at heart. So I'm suggesting you guys to relearn them by reading the book I've published to you guys, the SCT grammar in a nutshell, because it's very important. I don't want anyone to make mistakes on questions, for example, with fanboys or with modifiers. That is forbidden for me. Okay, you guys do not have the permission to make mistakes on those questions. The only way to do it is to learn everything there is about these conjunctions or these very fundamental concepts. So do not skip on them. Do not think that they are easy, right? Because these are the savior of yours. If you do not make this correct, you won't be able to get the 1400, let alone the 1500. So this is very serious, and I want you guys to consider this very seriously. All right, next up, we are going to head toward one of the most difficult questions on the SAT, which is textual. Oh, wait, let me just export it. So textual is infamous in a kind of infamous question on the SAT. Everybody knows about it. And also there's this website that I suggest to everyone who learns the SAT to do additional homework. that is Khan Academy. I'm going to send the link to you guys to look for it on the on Google. Okay, Khan Academy is the go-to. Khan Academy is the official source for the SAT. So if you want to have a bit more practicing, you can always go to that website and do some practicing according to the question types. For example, this one, I am going to share this one to you guys. Notion. For example, this one, you can see that, wait, I'm going to, there are 13 question types, and there are also 13-ish question types on the Khan Academy website, and you guys can always learn this. If you find it difficult to do the, for example, the textual, which we're going to learn today, you can always go back to Khan Academy and practice them further and further. But remember, the question catalog, which is the question bank, it is very limited. So do not waste it on something you don't know. Firstly, listen carefully to what I say first, what I've taught you, and remember them carefully, and you practice on the Khan Academy. Do not learn new or do anything you haven't learned yet on the Khan Academy, because let me remind you that it is very limited and there are not a lot of questions out there, okay? So today we're going to learn about textual. Hang on a sec, I'm just going to export it. Textual, let's see. What, can I just import the Word file so that I won't need to convert it to PDF? Oh no, I can't. All right. In the meantime, you can just review what I've just learned, and I will export this one for you guys. Remember, the easy questions holds the easy questions, they hold the most points. So those are the questions that you're going to have to put your main emphasis on them. You have to focus on them, not that you can gloss over them because they are easy, right? Okay. Textual. All right. Firstly, when you approach this question, there haven't anything that we haven't learned. There's not anything that we haven't learned before. We just follow some basic rules. And firstly, if we follow the basics rule that we've learned, can you just tell me what you would approach if I haven't told you anything, Lina? What you would approach, how you would approach this question?
What do you mean?
How are you going to approach this question?
What do you mean?
If I give you this question, what are the steps you're going to take to answer this question?
Well, I would read the question first,
Okay, read the prompt and then,
I find the keyword.
all right, what is the keyword?
Support means hypothesis.
Hypothesis, exactly. And based on these one, what are you going to look for in this paragraph?
The first sentence.
So you're looking for the hypothesis, right? All right. So this is the first case of a textual question when they ask you for a hypothesis or a claim. So if they specify that specifically, you're going to look back on the graph, on the paragraph, and then you look for specifically what they're asking for. For example, in this case, they're asking for a hypothesis, so you look for a hypothesis. The very simple way to look for it is the verb hypothesize, and in some cases, you're going to have to understand the context in order to look for the hypothesis. But mainly, in most cases, I haven't seen anything that's more difficult than to just have the verb, for example, claimed, hypothesized, argued, or anything like that. So this one, the hypothesis is the snail-like structure running down the back of the dinosaur Spinosaurus. This improved the animal success in underwater pursuit of prey species capable of making quick, evasive movements. All right. So next up, what are you going to do after specifying the hypothesis? I'm sorry.
For nation option.
I did not really get that. Can you repeat it?
Next, I will read for I will say for mention options.
So you're going to POE, right?
Yes.
All right, POE. Okay. Firstly, before POE, you can see that these are very long and lengthy. Are you going to read them all, or are you just doing what?
First them.
You're going to choose the keywords like you did for the questions. Okay. So for example, you split a question into two by circling the most important keywords in it. For A, what can you choose? Have you read through the paragraph? But first, have you read the full paragraph? Just
No.
give it a read and we'll just jump down later. Are you finished reading them?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to proceed with the POE. Firstly, before we do any POE, we're going to have to split the answers into two in order for it to be more correct, more precise. Firstly, can you pick me some keywords here?
Longer.
Exactly, longer to travel. While submerged, all right, just longer. This is the key, longer without than the model without the sail. The B,
Displays more water.
exactly, display significantly more water. And C is
Less battery power.
less battery had, yeah, less battery power. And D is
Less time.
less time to complete. And what matches the best with this hypothesis? Can you rephrase me what the hypothesis is? Can you just rephrase it very shortly? Summarize it?
The cellular structure can make quick and evasive movements.
Okay, so it's talking about making the quick evasive movement. So which option is most fit? A, B, C, or D?
D.
Was it?
D. Less time to complete.
Exactly. It takes the least time to complete a sharp turn while immersed. So it is way better. It suits exactly to this one. It's almost verbatim. It's almost word by word. So we can see that it's very easy if we do it that way. All right, thank you, Lina. We're going to head to the second question. How about Hung? Can you do this one? Can you do the step by step first?
Actually, I would read the prompt.
Okay.
And wait, do you need to list out the steps?
Can you specify what the keywords are?
Most effectively illustrate the claim.
Yeah, it's just which quotation? Just fill in the blank, right? So what is the claim?
Conveying his exaggerated sense of his importance.
Right, very good. So next up, what we're going to do,
Read the options.
and POE, right? So I want you to
Yes.
split them into keywords. Firstly, I'm going to go from A.
Carried himself.
Carry himself.
Passing under his own triumphal arch.
Right. This is quite lengthy because this is in fact a literature. So it's quite broad. Next up is B.
Scrupulously.
Scrupulously.
Buttoned about his form.
Right.
And a shiny top hat replaced the fare of the afternoon.
All right. The shiny top hat. We can stop it there. C.
Spoke in a large and important tone.
Spoke in a large and important tone. D is
A beautiful day in balmy May. Wait, no. Very spruce Prince Albert suits of grey.
shown presently on Mr. Collinius very spruce. I think the best thing to do this question is not just choosing the key, but just completely go straight to the POE part, right? So in this case, you can easily see that D, you find it difficult to look for the keys in a D section, because the option, because it's incorrect. Why is it? Look at this. The claim is talking about whom? It's talking about what or whom?
Mr. Cornelius Johnson.
Mr. Cornelius Johnson. So anything that's not talking about Cornelius Johnson will be wrong. It was a beautiful day and the sun shone. This is talking about the outside, the appearance and the environment. So is D Cornelius Johnson?
No.
No, it can't, because it's describing the environment and nothing related to the Mr. Cornelius Johnson. All right, next up will be A to C. Let's see what you choose. Which fits the most for the conveying his exaggerated sense of importance, of his importance?
B.
B, are you sure? So here's the key. when we're looking for something that's something that satisfy the requirement of the question, it almost just rephrase the question, rephrase the requirement. So we are looking for conveying his exaggerated sense of importance. What are we looking for? We're just looking for a word, a phrase, or anything. The answer, that's just rephrasing this part.
C.
Spoke in a large and important tone. All right, I'm going to carry out this one. The answer is, in fact, A. All right, so in this case, look, conveying his exaggerated sense of his importance. His importance is not expressed in C. Why is that? Because it's not, he might be exaggerating, but if you say that he is exaggerating in the C option, you are inferring. It's not talking about how he is exaggerating. It's just he is speaking in a large and important tone. He doesn't exaggerate. It's not talking about it. But the A option, he carried himself as if he were passing under his own triumphal arc. It means that he is trying to be important. He carried himself as if he were passing under like his triumphal arc, right? Triumphal arc is just a way of saying, so A is correct, is better suited than C, right? Have you got it home?
Yes.
All right, so next time look for the thing that's trying to rephrase the requirement of the sentence. So A is more suited. Good job, Thumb. You did it quite well. And next up is 3, and it's your turn also. Skip the talking, telling me the steps you're going to take. Just go straight to the POE, all right? Read this and tell me when you finish. Everyone else, just type in your answer in the chat box also. It's quite difficult, so I'm going to expect you guys to spend some more time on it.
At first I choose to cross out C.
Press out C. Why is it?
Because it's say that the lengths vary considerably due to the difference of courses they take, but in the passage it said that the cross-site variation in grain size were not associated with difference in downstream distance.
Downstream. But is it the conclusion though? They are talking about conclusion, right?
Yeah.
Then why are you talking about this one? Because as I would see that conclusion is this one, concluded that, The conclusion is this part. Sediment influx in these streams may have been sufficiently spatially diffused to prevent the typical sorting effect from being observed. I'm not saying that's wrong, but is it really why C is incorrect?
It's unrelated to the conclusion.
Right? The streams mostly originate from the same source, but their lengths vary considerably due to different courses they take. Different courses is we're not talking about the causes. Courses means like they flow, they change direction, flow that like different branches of river. But we're talking about what? We're talking about distance, right? So you made a correct assumption of focusing on the word distance. It's not the right sentence, but the scope is correct. We are focusing on the distance. So the different courses they're going to take is wrong. So C is incorrect. What else?
Maybe I should cross out the D.
Was it?
D. I will cross out D.
And why is it?
I think there aren't any correlation between E and the conclusion. So
crossing out D. All right. Next up is so I haven't concluded which one is correct. All right. This is Thumb's doing. So let's hear her opinion. What else? A or B?
A.
A. A is wrong or right?
A is wrong.
Why is it wrong?
Oh.
Okay, why is it wrong though? You see, A is if you cross out A, it means that you've got some clues out of it.
I think that it doesn't mention about the types of sediment in the conclusions.
The type sediment, the streams contain several types of sediment that are not typically found in streams where the sorting effect has been demonstrated. You're saying that it doesn't mention the types in the conclusion. So,
yeah.
Okay, so your conclusion is B.
Yeah.
So there are differences in your answer, both in chat, in Thumb's answer. So I'm going to resolve it once and for all. So guys, listen, none of your answer is correct, unfortunately, because the three of you guys gave out three different answers and none of it is correct. But in hindsight, it makes total sense if you look for it. Firstly, look closely to the conclusion because they are asking for the conclusion. So our main emphasis is this last sentence. Sediment influx in these streams may have been sufficiently spatially diffused to prevent the typical sorting effect from being observed. Right? So this is the conclusion. The influx, it diffused to prevent the effect of the sorting effect. So the sediment influx hindered or blocked the sorting effect from being affected, right? So in this case, this one hindered or stopped this action, right? What is sediment influx? Can anyone explain what sediment influx is to me? Do you guys have any idea?
The income of sediment.
Not just the income, but the influx. What does it mean?
The amount of sediment that the streams carry.
Influx means it changes. Influx is fluctuates, right? So it rises up and down non-stop and it's not stable. Influx, that's what influx means, right? So there's something, the sediment influx, that means, if it, for example, the sediment is like this. If the sediment stays at a constant rate, the sorting effect might have happened. But in this case, it changes like this. So the sorting effect, it doesn't take place. That's what sediment influx is. And it's diffuse. Diffuse means it doesn't matter, but it prevents the typical sorting effect from being observed. So A, let's POE. A, the streams contain several types of sediment that's not typically found in the streams where the sorting effect has been demonstrated. Does it talk about the influx of sediment? Right? Look closely for the very last sentence. The streams contain several types of sediment that are not typically found in streams. So it's talking about the beginning or the origin. So they're saying, like, in context, take this whole paragraph into context. You can see that they are not talking about anything that prevents any types that prevents the sorting effect from being observed. In fact, it doesn't talk about anything that's an outlier. They don't talk about anything that prevent, or for example, for wood and iron, it can sort out, and for rock, it doesn't, or diamond, it doesn't, for carbon, it doesn't sort out. It doesn't talk about that. It only talks about the sorting effect, and in this specific instance, it doesn't happen. But it's not because there's no correlation between distance and the grain size or anything like that. It's just that it doesn't happen. They don't talk about the reason. So this is inferring. This is very dangerous. Now, as you have seen, the main reason we make mistakes are because we are inferring. So it doesn't talk in this paragraph. It is not mentioned, so it is wrong. If it is, there's some sentences or there's some characters, there's some words that talks about whether or not this specific type of material prevents this effect from happening, it's correct. But in this case, we are just assuming, or this is just too long or too convoluted for us to understand. So we just chose this very complicated option, right? Maybe we don't fully understand the option. Next up is B. The streams are fed by multiple tributaries that carry significant volumes of sediment and that enter the streams downstreams of the sampling site. This could have been correct. This is very tricky. This and between B, C, D. B is the easiest to choose because it's talking about significant volumes of sediment. But it doesn't talk about how the sediment changes. Influx means the change, right? Changes over time. That's influx. So it's wrong. For example, you have 100 apples and the amount of colored apples, orange, red, or green apples, it doesn't talk about that. It only talks about how much apple you have. It doesn't talk about the variant. So B is also wrong. It's unrelated. And C, the streams mostly originate from the same source, but they length vary considerably due to different courses they take. It's also wrong because obviously it doesn't talk about the courses or the direction of flow. It talks about the length or the distance from the route it takes. And D is the only one that's left. And let's see why D is correct. right? D from POE, we can see D is correct, but let's make sense of D, right? The streams regularly experience proportion of their banks collapsing into the water. The banks collapsing into the water, what does it mean? Does it even remotely relate to sediment influx? It does, because if a bank, this is a river, right? If the bank or there's two sides of a river, it collapses, it pours dirt into the river. When it collapses, it pours dirt or material, raw material. That means it increases the sediment. Sediment means material, right? The amount of material inside of the river is increased when the banks is just drop some material onto them. So you can see that when a river forms, the most of its material comes from dirt, comes from banks, it comes from earth, right? It's not originate from the sea, because river is not from the sea. In fact, it's the other way around. River, it routes out to sea, but river gets its nutrients for its fishes from dirt and materials from the banks. So in this case, you can see that regularly experienced means that sometimes it experiences this event, and sometimes it doesn't. So it influx between times. So at multiple points upstreams of the sampling site. So it happens at sometimes and it doesn't happen some other times. And it's in multiple points. So you can see that the sorting effect cannot absolutely happen, because the collapsing of banks, it happens in multiple points throughout the course of the stream. So D is the only one that's correct. Have you guys understood this? Okay, so it's a very tricky one, and I would suggest you guys to skip on this if you are to encounter this on the SAT. But this is practicing, so we are going to fix it either way. Next up, a bit easier to swallow. 4, can you do this for me, Lina? Cool.
The keyword of the question is support claim.
What is the claim?
The student claimed that October placed his errors of expertise by applying journalism techniques to his creation of post of fiction.
Right, this one is the claim. Turbo blends his area of expertise by applying journalism techniques to his creation of works of fiction. All right, so let's head up to POE.
First, B, because it doesn't mention any information related to the claim.
So specifically what claim? So you saying that B is wrong, right?
Yes.
And you say that it doesn't mention anything about the claim that, what claim? It doesn't talk about anything about applying journalism into creation of works of fiction, right? That's the simplest way of answering. So let's see. B, Toba got his start as a volunteer firstly is volunteering and wrote for newspaper and start publishing works of fiction. It's just talking about his causes of action. It doesn't specifically talk about like journalism. Journalism, do you understand what journalism mean? It's like note taking for newspaper, but it's further than that. And you can see it when you can understand it when you see it further down the line. Right. Next up is
D.
why D?
Because D is talk about the protagonist of Toward Trust No More.
Okay, very good. This is very simple. It talks about something unrelated. What else? A or C?
I also crossing.
Why C?
C is C mentioned that writer use of techniques also associated with fiction, but the claim that they apply journalism techniques.
Okay, very good. They're talking about journalism, so it leaves us with A. And let's see, journalism is like a reporter. It interviews people, and that is precisely what a journalist does. And journal is like journaling, taking notes, and alongside and research. The main claim, the main point of this claim is talking about his experience, right? It's not talking about the protagonist. It's not talking about the techniques. It's talking about journalism techniques. It's not talking about the symbolism, anything like that. Specifically, it's talking about the experience and the journalism techniques. So B and D, they are unrelated, and C is talking about an entirely different technique. A is the only answer. Very good. Right, I see that Hung came up with the answer very quickly. Next up is Hung's turn. This is quite interesting. In fact, the only time that it appears on the SAT is the digital SAT, the poem. The poem is a very new one, but it's quite simple. It's not as it seems.
D.
D. All right. So very quickly, why D? Why did you choose D?
B and C is eliminated because it says I am the sea, which is not portraying a rock.
Okay, very good, very clever. It's not portraying a rock, right? So A or D.
In the poem D, it says I am sad to encounter thee, which pretty much means the same thing as to confront.
Very good.
And the latter part says that I am set here to limit thy power, which
Okay,
means to restrain the sea.
restraint, very good. So in the ancient English, we are still carrying this. It's not converting yet. The thee and thy. Thee is you, and thy is your, right? This is Old English. And they haven't converted these words into New English yet because these still have a meaning in the modern dictionary. So remember these words, it appears very commonly on the digital SAT or on the SAT in general because it's very common in literature. Very good indeed. D. Presumptuous, these just very gibberish. We don't really need to understand them because they are very difficult. But what we are going to understand is that they're asking for illustration. So it precisely reiterate or it repeats what being asked. It just paraphrase them. A rock is portrayed. So Hung said the rock here is not the sea. And intending to confront here and restrain. You can see that most correct SAT questions, they just paraphrase the requirement. If you come down to it, you can see every single correct question, this is not paraphrased, this is talking about a new one, a new information. Oh yeah, this is not, I'm sorry. This one is paraphrasing the requirement, but this one is talking about the hypothesis if true, it's not paraphrased, but most of the times you can see that the correct answer, oftentimes they paraphrase the requirement. Next up is 6. Dom, can you do it? Now, if you can give out the answer immediately, that'd be great. You don't need to walk through each step. How do you do 6, Dom?
I use B.
Okay, why is it?
I just I think it makes sense to describe her grief and the wish up to be I don't know, but I think it's makes
You can do
sense.
it like Hung, and you can point out the parts which correlate to what part. For example, the rock correlate to a rock is portrayed, I am the rock, and to confront is encounter thee. That's how you're going to explain this one. Also, can you explain it like that?
I don't know how to explain like in this sentence.
Can you give me the why you come up with B?
I see that the will to be justified of her in these questions, and so I choose it.
Okay, let me just try to make this clear. B is correct, but I want you guys to understand it, for those others to understand it fully. We focus on the claim. Claim is is not always specified by the word. The verb claim is portray or the claim. Sometimes it's before the comma. You just gonna the colon. You're just gonna have to rely on the context. In this case, the claim is here: mourning for her dead father, and her long absent brother, is aware of the intensity of her grief, but believes it to be justified. Right? These are the two aspects I'm focusing on. And firstly, the B is correct because look, for I know my own passion. She knows, she is aware of the intensity. She knows her own passion. It escapes me not. It doesn't escape her. But seeing that the causes are so dire, I would never curb these frenzied plaints while life is in me. So she's talking about the causes are so dire. I don't understand what dire mean, and I don't need to. We'll never curb. She doesn't curb. She doesn't stop. And this alone doesn't make me feel confident enough. So I'm going to POE, all right? This is because I know the correct answer. I'm explaining it to you guys. But the general way to do this is to cross out the incorrect parts. Cross out A, C, and D. So focus on POE. I think POE in this case is still easier than just choosing the correct answer. So read through and choose, right? Remember to read every single one of them, and then you cross out the ones that are incorrect. Our next up is, all right, this one, 7. Can you do this one for me, Lina? Seven's like very long, but because 7 is like number 2 or number 3 is very long, but you need to consolidate them and you find what they're asking for, the hypothesis.
The key of the creature is hypothesis, and I find the synonym of hypothesis in the graph, and I noticed that hypothesize, and I see from the hypothesize that text motion failure is tied to a species. So I will cross B.
Okay, cross B. Next up. I'm not going to ask any further because I believe you guys understood this quite well already.
And also cross C.
C, out. Okay.
And D to.
So it leaves with A, all right? So
Yeah.
if we can look back at A, we can justify it by the line transposition in ovigerous and ovimmaculoids genomes and anything like that is active in an octopus brain structure that functions similarly to the human hippocampus. Is tied to the species capacity to advance cognition. Advanced cognition is most apparent in humans' brains, humans' hippocampus. I'm surprised that you guys didn't all right, and that, to be honest, I didn't expect you guys did this right in the first time. But look, this is a biology. Yeah, biology, and it is very complicated, and you might have known that the inside jokes of the medicine students, that they use an entirely different kind of language other than English or Vietnamese. They don't use that. They use entirely different language to describe the issues or the body parts or anything like that. They use entirely different language. So we can't possibly learn biology. We don't really have to learn medicine in order to answer this question. What we have to learn is we have to learn to ignore the gibberish, the unimportant parts, the unimportant bits. So we're going to be able to focus on like doing the POE, right? In this case, you guys did so well. This is honestly, I did not expect this, but do not stay too overconfident on this because I want you guys to keep the good streak. To be honest, this lesson has been quite successful because I can see that you guys did quite well, and this is the one of the most difficult questions on the SAT. If you find it just too easy, just tell me, all right? You don't have to endure all of this. If it's too easy, tell me to increase the difficulty or increase the homework even, so that I can, well, make it up to you, because I see that some of you guys have done the questions so quickly and so correctly that you guys have too much free time on your hand. So tell me if you feel so free, especially for those two who are taking the August SAT. I'm looking at you. Try to keep yourself busy, occupied before the test, all right? And next up is 8. Can you finish this off with home?
A.
How did you come about A?
POE.
Yeah, POE, but how POE? You have to explain it, even though if I
Sorry.
know already.
Sorry.
Okay.
B is wrong because it emphasizes that educators enjoy teaching courses, not the students.
Educators, very good. It's you guys. Okay, continue.
C is wrong because it emphasizes that students enjoy rap music more than hip hop music, which is not the point.
Okay, very good. C is out also.
And D says the contrasting idea of the prompt.
The students who are highly interested in social justice issue typically don't sign up for courses. Oh, pedagogy encourages student success by raising students. Yeah, it's opposite. It's the direct opposite of what the claim is talking about. I think you guys did so great, and to be honest, I'm impressed. Yeah, even if you guys can, any of you can score the 1600, that would make me proud. But don't be fooled by your ability yet, because there's still maths. There's still maths. So next week, I'm going to put in the main emphasis on math section for you guys. And well, all of you, there's also going to be homework, but the most important homework for you guys is to review everything you've learned and find out what you make, in what aspect of the math section you make the most errors, right? And message me that so that I can compile a list of errors for each and every one of you, so that I can consult and advise you on your own SAT journey, right? Because remember, we only share like an hour and a half each for 3 days, for 3 days a week. So it's not nearly enough for you to improve significantly your scores. The only thing that makes a difference is your ability to self-study, right? With my guidance, I think you guys can do very good, very well. And with these POE strategies and everything like that, I think you guys can quite easily just perfect the skills on the SAT and try to get 1500 plus, all right? If you can't yet, try to put yourself in the 1400, but I would expect you guys to all score below, I'm sorry, more than 1500. Make me proud, okay? And also focus on maths. I think you guys do not have more time, but right now, tomorrow, or day after, I'm going to ask you guys to do more on maths, and I'm compiling more maths tests so that you guys can practice a bit more. And remember the Hung and Thumb, you guys tomorrow, you guys do redo the practice test 1, and if there are still any errors, just call me and I will sort it out by tomorrow's night, right? And Lena, do not forget that your weakness is still time management. Try to cut down on it, and I can see that you have marginalized the time that you need to take on each question, and especially the longer questions. I find that you have improved your time significantly, and I'm very proud of each and one of you. So what you're going to do at home is try to become better. Of course, your homework is not nearly enough for you guys to improve your score. It's just the bare minimum. Obviously, it will improve your score, but it's just the bare minimum. It's the effort that you're going to put in that makes the difference, right? So, well, I don't think you guys have any more questions, do you? You guys still have any more questions? All right. If you don't have any more questions, I'm going to conclude the class for today. And I wish you guys a productive week, and have a good night. Have a great night. Goodbye, everyone.